How can we trust ourselves when we're constantly rejecting ourselves? You wouldn't trust someone who consistently rejects and abandons you and tells you that you're wrong. So how can we come from a place of trusting ourselves, which is the root of self-esteem, healthy self-esteem and self-confidence, if we're constantly rejecting ourselves, abandoning ourselves, bulldozering how we feel, shaming ourselves? We can't do it.
See Beneath Your Beautiful podcast is raw and intimate, sometimes funny, and always entertaining. With new episodes every Saturday, Hara explores our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness.
Hey, my name is Gina. I'm a 27-year speaker, confidence crusader, and visionary of the Too Much Woman movement. I have an absolute passion for inviting people to step into the highest, best life, whatever that means for them, and to embrace their too muchness.
I love that. I don't know how I first saw your video, but I looked back and I first shared it in 2018 before I even knew what Speaker Slam was. So I'm not sure how I actually saw it, but boy, did it speak to me.
The video currently has a viral viewing of over 50 million. But at the time, I didn't know what a speaker slam was either. I, at the time, was a 25-year corporate and public speaker already. I spoke about conscious leadership and epic empowerment. And I was invited, I was actually tagged on a Facebook post. They were looking for someone to fill the last slot in a speaking competition in Toronto, Canada, where I live. And I don't know why I said yes. It was just this intuitive yes, without even knowing. I thought it was going to be 20 people in a bar. I had no idea. But I, at that point, was very tuned into my intuition, and something said yes. I wrote the speech very quickly. It wrote itself, really. And I realize now that at the time, it was the first speech I had ever written for myself. And it was probably because I thought it was going to be 20 people in a bar. And typically a speaker writes for their audience. So you ask, what do you want them to take away? What's the learning you're hoping they'll walk away with? But this was the first time ever in my 25-year career that I wrote something that was for me. And I cautioned the host. I said, I don't think anyone's going to get this speech because it's called The Too Much Woman. And it was the story of my journey of being told I was too much my whole life. Too sensitive, too emotional, too voluptuous, too outspoken, too ambitious, too loud, too dramatic, and how I journeyed through that. Most of the people that I'd worked with in my career told the story of being not enough. When I delivered that speech, I won the competition, and the speech was posted online. And within days, weeks, it went uber viral, and it really shifted my work in a way that I didn't plan for or anticipate.
What I'm about to say to you might come as a surprise, but the hottest part about me is the thunder of my thighs. That oh so fleshy part of me that forever I despise. Well, it's taught me much about my truth and teased apart the lies. You see, I'm the too much woman, and I am dangerous, can't you see? My truth, my words, my hips, my curves, 2 handfuls, maybe 3. Too loud, too big, too bold, too wild, too sexy. Yeah, that's me. And I won't sit down, shut up, or dim, turn it off, hide away. I won't be taken down a few notches. I won't be shamed, silenced, or put into the corner, baby.
The time since then has been a whirlwind. It's had me birth a book, a movement, brought me on stages with the people that I had studied my whole life. But more than that, in retrospect now, sitting here 3 years later, it actually blazed a trail before me that I was going to journey on that I had no idea. I actually wrote the speech before I really understood it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've spent 3 years unpacking what it means to be a too much woman. And it's bizarre how that unfolded.
I think I feel like a too much woman and a not enough woman.
Too much and not enough are actually opposite sides of the same coin. So if you call someone too emotional, they're not rational enough. Call someone, too dramatic, they're not common-centered enough. You call someone, too loud and boisterous, they're not demure enough. And so the message is the same, and the inherent message is as you are is wrong. And what the too much woman is about is standing in your rightness. And me coming to terms, the story is me coming to terms with the rightness of my body first. The too much physicality of me, I'm a voluptuous woman. The too much physicality of me is the first thing that people notice. Mm-hmm. But when I journey back over the course of my life, I'm too much in all the ways. So my book is about all the different ways I've been told I was too much. And a lot of people will say, thinking they're complimenting me, oh, no, you're not too much. You're just right. And they're missing the point, because the point is not to fit into a box of just right. It's to embrace the part of me that squiggles or scribbles outside the lines of what is seen as okay or normal or right or perfect or acceptable. I don't want to be in that box anymore. And I don't want anyone to feel limited to that box anymore. That's what it's really about.
That's so beautiful, because not one person in the entire world fits in that box. Even the supermodels don't feel, perfect. You know what I'm saying? Perfect is not a thing.
We spend our lives unconsciously, sometimes consciously, chasing that box. We desire innately to be fitting into this cookie cutter ideal of what a woman should be, what a good mother should be, what a nice person should be. And so the unpacking of this story for me is looking at all the slices of my life and reclaiming them and not judging them, not, trying to morph them, but accepting them as they are. That's the love, I think, that the acceptance that we're all seeking. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to sound, Pollyanna-ish, but the journey for me personally has been very much about the reclamation of those pieces that I've always felt were wrong. Mm-hmm.
Let's rewind that tape a bit, shall we? I was born a too much little girl in a big fat Greek family. And I was fed compliments along with second helpings of everything, because food and words are how we love in my family. They called me beauty queen and blue-eyed princess. And those words, they tasted as good as mama's cooking. And I learned early on that my body was a form of currency, that with the bat of an eye and a sweet smile and a tilt of my head, I could buy me more love and attention. And that worked for a while, until it didn't. Until the beauty of my body started to entice customers that I did not want in my store. And so I started to backpedal, to become small and afraid, and to dim my too muchness. Well, I trained as a dancer and slowly came back to loving my body again, to feeling strong in my skin and confident in my stride. And on a crisp fall day in grade 9, I was surrounded by 20 older girls who pinned my arms behind my back, kicking, punching, spitting, scratching, punishing me for my too muchness and my love of my body. And as the blood dripped from my nose, so did the light in my spirit. And once again, realizing that I wasn't safe in this body, I dimmed it down. For the next 15 years, I teetered in my too much body. On the one hand, growing in my womanhood and wanting to be seen and loved and desired. And on the other hand, so afraid that my beautiful body would betray me, inviting danger once again.
I also love that you talk about, your post this morning said something about being okay to be sexual and having orgasms, not just loving your body, but loving what your body's made for. I just appreciate that so much, that somebody's saying it.
Thank you. Because it's been a long time coming. I will tell you that as a mother, I have 2 teens, as a woman in her 40s, as a recovering good girl, all I ever wanted to be was good growing up. That was my claim to fame. it's been a long time coming to this place. And had you seen my posts even 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you will notice that there is not one picture of me. This is not the content that I ever would even imagine me speaking about. But what I noticed is when I looked at the wheel of my life, and as a speaker, I've been a speaker in the personal development movement for over, as I said, over 25 years. I've looked at almost every slice of my own life as I'm teaching it. My relationship with my money, my relationship with people, my relationship with my family, even my relationship with my body to an extent, but never, ever in a million years, my relationship with my sexuality. And as I started to delve deeper into my spiritual journey, and that's why my work, my podcast, so much of my content falls under the umbrella, Finding Your Spiritual G-Spot. That was actually the name of my book originally. The one area that I resisted so much was my sexuality. I just thought it didn't fit anywhere. It wasn't anybody's business, not even my own business.
Oh, yeah. I just appreciate it so much. So thank you.
Thank you.
When I was 5 and I was 7, I was touched inappropriately. And from then on, I feel like I always thought my worth was through my body. Is that anything similar to your history? How did you, based on what I saw of your speaker slam, it seemed like men always noticed your body before they noticed how great your mind was. What's your story about your sexuality and, growing up and appreciating your body, but knowing you're more than that?
I'll be honest with you. That's something I'm still coming to terms with. And so what you'll notice in my work is it peeks out inconspicuously, sometimes deliberately, sometimes undeliberately. My background is journalism. So when I research things because my left brain needs to know, and then I intuit how that fits in my body. And so when I research and I understand that the compliments and attention that a child receives who identifies as female is all about her physicality. Don't you look pretty? You're so cute. What a nice dress. Mm-hmm. You're such a sweetheart. Look at that smile. And when we speak to a young child who identifies as a boy, it's more about their actions. You're so fast. Mm. You're so smart. And so very early on, as I said in my speech, I recognized there's actually, to make you laugh, there's a period of maybe about 3 to 7 years old where all of the photo albums and every single picture, I had my head tilted slightly to the side in a little coy smile, and I would just kind of flirt with the camera. And it's bizarre to me. Now, I remember that. Mm-hmm. And my mother would be like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, I knew that worked. I was very self-aware, and I knew, and it wasn't just with men, but I knew that how I looked was a tool, and it got me what I want until it got me what I didn't want. And that was invitation into, as I say, my store. Customers came into my store that I didn't invite. I'm still coming to terms with how I want my body to inform my message or not. If you follow me on any of my platforms are quite provocative. Mm-hmm. And that's intentional. The intention is twofold. Number one, I know that a lot of people come to my work because my content's provocative. But what I also know in 3 years, for sure, because of the comments and messages I receive, is that the message is getting through. So they come because it's provocative and shocking maybe, and then they stay because something resonates with them. Mm-hmm. But also, I am committed to dismantling the idea that a woman can either be sexy or smart, brilliant or kind.
Right.
I am all the things. Mm-hmm. And I'm so tired, as we said before, of trying to fit a box and being stifled in one place. Like I am all the things, and we deserve to be all the things that we feel that we are.
Yeah. I'm a photographer, and I photograph women who are constantly self-conscious, and I understand it, but they just beat themselves up.
My passion is being a model of possibility for other people. Mm-hmm. Inspiration's a circle. what inspires me and gives me legs, courage, is the feedback that I get from not just women, but also men, not just men and women, but people who identify across the spectrum, not just people who identify across the spectrum, but teenagers. I've had priests in their 80s. People saying, I am validated seeing you. I am motivated. I am challenged. I love the people who say, you make me so uncomfortable and, or I hated you and, because we need one another to be models of possibility. When someone looks at my content or is provoked even by my words, and they say, because of that, I fill in the blank. And for everybody, it's different. I wore shorts for the first time, or I wore red lips, or I spoke up, or I, made love to my husband in a different way. Like it doesn't matter what it is. It's the smallest or the biggest thing. That ripple counts for me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward. I'm a grown woman now, smart, professional, delivering a keynote to a sea of over 300 executive men in suits, deciding this would be my defining moment. Once and for all, I was going to be seen, not for my body, but for my art, for my craft, for what I brought to the table. So I manned up. Severe pantsuit, button to the top, breasts hidden, hair slicked back into a severe bun. I even bought me some fake glasses. I dimmed down all the juiciness of my too much body. And yeah, I knocked that baby right out of the park. And I flew off the stage to a standing ovation, thinking I had finally won the battle by dimming this body down. And there I was, strolling along in my self-celebration, when I was approached from a man from the audience who asked if he could walk me to my car. And out in the parking lot, he grabbed my arm. His nails were like talons digging into my skin. And he pulled me close, very close, too close. So close that I could smell the stale coffee and misogyny on his breath as he hissed, I have a fetish for librarian types. Say what? All I remember is driving fast, driving on the highway and watching my whole life fly past in front of me and ricochet off the windowsill, the shaming, the hiding, the dumbing down, the shunning, letting my hair blow wild and the tears flow free and deciding I would no longer deny the love of my body. From now on, I would dare to be seen in my all that juicy over-the-topness. People carelessly say, love your body. But what they don't say is, baby, it's a dangerous game. People are going to shun you, objectify you. They're going to ignore you. They're going to be afraid of you. And I say, yes, baby, all that, yes. But guess what? Do it anyway.
Is your mess your message? How did you get here?
I'm going to actually say something that shocks people when I say it, but there is no finish line. I haven't arrived.
Yeah.
And people often look to someone who's showing up in a certain way and they think, I want to get there. People always say to me, I'm not there yet. I've got work to do. And I always say, I'm not there yet either. There is no finish line. And I think that's so important to say, because in the personal development space, the imagery is that we want to get to the destination, like X marks the spot. We want to burst through the ribbon and like everyone's cheering, you've arrived, you're self-loving now, like you're there. And my message, and I don't think it's a doom and gloom message, it's actually the opposite. It's like, there is no end, there is no line. And so I recommit every single day. I hit refresh every single day. So is my mess my message? Yes, but it's a continuous mess. The spiritual journey is a circle. So it's not a line. We keep coming back to the same lessons with different perspective. So I'm daily, like 2020 was the hardest year of my life for so many reasons. My life is barely recognizable from 2 years ago. So I continue to up level. And I think that's so important that people understand. And I try to post as much as I can about that. I believe in posting things once we're on the other side of the bridge with some perspective in our learning. So I may not talk about it in present time. So my answer to your question is yes, my message, but not in the way that most people think. It's not like, oh, I'm a recovering addict and here I am now. I want people to understand that it's a constant evolution. And maybe that gives them a little bit of reprieve from having to chase this end place. And maybe just a little bit of peace to say, okay, today, what can I do today? How can I recommit today? That's what I hope people take away from my work.
Oh my gosh. I so appreciate that. I've been doing this coaching and I keep saying, I keep having the same ahas. I see my Facebook memories. I'm like 2 years ago, I knew that. So I appreciate you saying that. And now that I can think about it, that I'm having an aha just with a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Because I'm in a different spot. So I really appreciate that because I do feel like I should be further along. How old do I have to be before the aha sticks?
This really brings up, something that's very present for me is in my work with people, a lot of times it's goal oriented. People want to say, okay, I'm here and I want to get there. And it's great to have goals, and a vision for your life. It's wonderful. However, the challenge with that being your sole focus is that we're never satisfied and we're never present. We're never fully here. We're just always looking over there. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, what we're not doing is having any sense of fulfillment with where we are. It's just never enough, right? Like it's this constant insatiable tapeworm. So the shift that I try to make with people is to recognize that when you have a value-driven life, when you understand what your core values are, as opposed to just focused on goals, core values are things that you live by. And when we look at the book of The Top Regrets of the Dying, which was a New York Times bestseller for a long time, the number one regret of the dying was not having the courage to live life according to their own standard and being super obsessed with other people. And so living a value-driven life as opposed to a goal-oriented life is a good way to shift that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love that. Thank you. Right. I told my daughter once, we were sitting on the couch and I was saying, all there is to life is noticing the sunset and doing good today. And she was horrified. It's sort of what you're saying is just, there's no end goal. There's no end line.
There is no end line. And things aren't always so binary. So what I'm learning is to play in the messy middle.
Yeah.
Because I love black and white. I think we all do. It's like, I want everything really neatly stacked. Okay, so if life's not about the goal, then it must be just about being present in the moment. Mm-hmm. Yes, and so the messy middle is that what gives us juice, the joie de vivre, the enthusiasm and excitement is actually the feeling, the idea of expansion and growth. So while we do want to be present in the moment with the sunset, we also want to allow ourselves, part of life is about dreaming about future sunsets.
Right.
What would the sunset look like from the top of the Eiffel Tower? What would it look like in Hawaii? So I think both are important. The definition of happiness in a crazy way, in a bizarre way that I finally am starting to understand is very much about growth. When we recognize, I'm growing. I'm not there yet. So it's not goal driven, but it's like, look, I'm a little bit better today. I can do 5 push-ups today. That's growth is what fuels us and gives us, meaning in a different way. And so we do need both.
Right. Yeah, I see that. That's great. Thank you. She'll be so happy to know. We're both, she's amazing. She's doing all her work, but I don't know what the expectation is. What is the goal? I don't know. The goal is to be happy. Like there's no I don't know, or do Mount Kilimanjaro. I don't know, whatever the goal is. Mine's to go for a walk around the neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
It's a little lower. What else do you want to talk about? What else is there that I don't know about?
What comes up for me is to talk about the root system that really has pulled all my work together. And it's the heart and center of my work, which is self-trust. I call myself a confidence crusader. Like I have this vision of me running with this torch and everyone running with me. And we're like, let's go live our best life. But the truth is, I love the imagery of a tree. And I think here we have we focus on this strong trunk and these beautiful leaves. And it's what we present to the world. It's our gifts, what we give to the world, whether it's fruit or shade or, we have so much focus on the tree that we present, that what people see in terms of our life. But what allows us to show up and live our best life is what happens underground. It's all about the root system. It's the health of the system. It's the nutrients that we feed it. And when I look really closely at that ultimately for me, what I've discovered for me is all about self-trust. And so when people say, how do I live my best life? How do I build my confidence? How do I love myself more? How do I get into better relationships? And we start unpacking what best life looks like for you. I always come back to the root system, which is building our self-trust muscle. A lot of people think self-trust is going for the thing. I trust myself to take a risk in this relationship. I trust myself to write this book and it's going to be a bestseller. I trust myself to start this business or this podcast and I'm going to kill it. But that's actually not self-trust. Self-trust is the assured reliance that no matter what happens, that I will take care of me, that I can trust that I've got my own back. And what I've recognized looking back at my life, at the timeline of my life, and even in everyday current situations, everything really comes back to nourishing the root system of my own self-trust. And that's really the heart and soul of my work.
That's so beautiful.
What is your relationship with your self-trust? If you're a visual person, most of us are, draw a circle and slice up that circle into a whole bunch of different pie slices. And each of these slices represents a part of your life. There's your relationship with your body, your relationship with your finances, relationship with your kids, with your parents, with your partner, relationship with your sexuality, with your spirituality, with your creativity, with your purpose. Divvy it up however many times you like. And then to really ask yourself for each of these sections, how would I rate my level of self-trust in this area on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being no, I don't trust myself, and 10 being I do trust myself. And this is such a beautiful exercise because what we can recognize is that self-trust isn't like a band across our lives. In different areas, we have different levels of self-trust. And what you'll notice are the areas where you have higher levels of self-trust. Like I trust that I will pay my bills on time, pay myself first, put money away for a rainy day, that my relationship with my finances, high self-trust, I tend to have high self-confidence and more life satisfaction in that area. But the areas of my life where I have low self-trust, maybe that's in romantic relationships. I don't trust that I'll uphold my boundaries. I don't trust that I'll speak up when I don't feel fulfilled. I don't trust that I won't be codependent because of my abandonment issues. Those are areas where I'm least confident and least fulfilled. And so this gives us information. It's a good place to start in terms of our self-awareness.
Well, how do you help somebody when they have low self-trust in an area?
I love that question. How much time do we have? This has been my work. I was on tour until, March of 2020. And when my tour stopped and I got over the grief of my tour and my work, literally, this is my work. I do live events. I speak for a living. I had nowhere to go but be with myself. And this is when this was rooted. Can I trust the world? Can I trust my finances? Can I trust that I'll find something else? And so I've spent the past year looking at all of the ways that we build our self-trust. That's what I teach. That's my program. So number 1 is prioritizing truth over goodness. Most of us, and particularly women, prioritize being seen as a good, nice person. I'm a good mother. I'm a good lover. I'm a good wife. I'm a good character. People look to me for all of these good qualities. But what we do when we prioritize goodness is we kibosh or we bulldozer our truth. That's where people pleasing comes from. That's why we have loose boundaries. And so really recognizing and committing to the different areas in your life, particularly those areas where we have low self-trust, and looking at where have I prioritized goodness over truth. That's a great journaling reflection question. Another way that we can build our self-trust is focusing on areas of strength. Most of the personal development movement, most of the way that we're socialized, whether it's in the education system or even in companies, is we focus on the lack. A kid gets a report card and there's like A's and B's and A's and B's, but then there's that D in, math. What do? We double down on homework there. We get a tutor. And so this idea that we have to be balanced and we should focus on the gaps. Personal development is all about what's wrong with you.
Mm.
And that breaks our self-trust. When we spend so much of our time focusing on our lack, what's wrong with my thighs? Well, you know what? I want to focus on my boobs because I've got great breasts. So all of the way that I dress is going to enhance. I mean, it's the same philosophy, right? Instead of spending as an entrepreneur, I'm a speaker, I could spend a lot of time focusing on marketing or I can focus on, what Gay Hendricks calls my zone of genius, putting the energy on the thing that I've come to do or the thing that I'm passionate about, the thing that I love.
Mm-hmm.
And once I do that and spend less time doing the other things that really depletes my energy, really depletes my self-esteem, makes me feel like crap, makes me exhausted and distracted, things change in my life exponentially. And so I know this is a really chunky one, but spending more time doing the things that you love and you're good at, focusing on your strength, letting your strength lead, as opposed to what we're taught socially to focus on working on the deficit.
I love that. So I mentioned I was in coaching, and one of the things I really like about her is we don't really talk about the negative, but there's this best version of myself that I always think about. The best version of me is good and kind and thoughtful and all the things that I'm not always, because sometimes I'm an immature brat.
I'm so glad you said that. Another component of self-trust is allowing ourselves to be in acceptance of all the pieces of us.
Yeah.
So when it comes to emotions is a great example, right? So I lived a neck up existence for most of my life. It might have been because I was rejecting my body and rejecting the attention of my body and the abuse or whatever. But I, for so much of my life, lived in my head. I wanted to figure things out. And I was taught, as most, I want to say everyone, but most of us were taught that emotions could be dangerous and wrong. I was told I was too sensitive and too emotional. So emotions were basically divided into two categories. There's the good ones and the bad ones. So there's happiness, enthusiasm, kindness, joy, motivation. And then there's jealousy, resentment, sadness, anger. And whenever I felt those negative emotions, there was a negative response. Love was withdrawn. I was either shamed or guilted or don't feel that way, or you're lucky, or, look at everything you have, or go to your room, or stop crying, or it's not that bad. In some way, the messaging comes across that part of me, which is innate, is wrong. And that what was only acceptable was the good stuff. So when I was happy and joyful, I was loved, I got attention. And so we create this story in our head that this is acceptable and this isn't. But our feelings are true for us. And so what we do is we fragment. We literally split ourselves many, 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 many times over our lifetime. And the truth, and that's why this comes back to truth over goodness, the truth of how I feel and who I am isn't wrong. We're always kind of course correcting to be right or righter, like our whole lives. Like I got to course correct and be kinder, nicer, more generous, more inspired, more healthy. We self-reject the pieces of us that we've been told are wrong. That's the antithesis of self-love.
Yeah.
Self-love is accepting, reclaiming all the pieces. And that's why it comes full circle to the beginning of our conversation. Loving myself and my too muchness is about the reclamation of all of me. And it's not saying it's right, wrong, and different. It's saying this is all of me and I accept it all. That's more important than goodness.
Right. Well, and that is what she keeps saying, is that it's okay to be that also. And, to acknowledge that little girl that's immature and needs to be acknowledged. That's what's so beautiful. And Byron Katie says, I don't know if you know who she is. She says,
yes,
that your feelings have a right to life. And that is so beautiful because, I'm not supposed to feel that way.
That's self-abandonment. That's self-rejection. It is ultimately the way that we reject ourselves. And so when we bring it back to self-trust, how can we trust ourselves when we're constantly rejecting ourselves. You wouldn't trust someone who consistently rejects and abandons you and tells you that you're wrong. So how can we come from a place of trusting ourselves, which is the root of self-esteem, healthy self-esteem and self-confidence, if we're constantly rejecting ourselves, abandoning ourselves, bulldozering how we feel, shaming ourselves? We can't do it.
That's the gem right there. That's it exactly.
That's the gem right there.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for this whole conversation. I'm just so happy you're talking to me. I'm so excited you said yes being on my podcast. Thank you.
I'm so excited. These are important conversations and they fuel me. And so I'm grateful for all of them. And I appreciate you asking.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for opening up and sharing things with me. Will you say how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, probably the best way is on social media. I'm present on Facebook and Instagram and now TikTok. I'm finding new and exciting ways to share the message. If you just look up Gina Too Much Woman, I'm on YouTube. You'll find me pretty much everywhere. I'm either dancing or singing or posing, but always, always committed to challenging and provoking lovingly. You can find me anywhere. Gina Too Much Woman.
I really appreciate that you listened to your instinct and you did that speaker slam, because somehow I found you. I live in Post Falls, Idaho. And I'm just so appreciative of your message. So thank you.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for that.
What's the name of your book?
My book's called Celebrating the Too Much Woman.
Okay.
I'm dumbfounded truly by the messages I still get from people who say, oh my God, I was told I was too emotional, too sensitive, too dramatic, too all the things.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving them a different lens through which to see themselves. That makes me happy.
Yeah. I mean, it is so interesting that just somebody else having a similar story validates you, and that somehow we need validation.
There's a beautiful saying that we're all just walking one another home. I just love that because I look at my work. It's not the Gina movement. I'm grateful to have had all of those years that prepared me for this moment. You know, being a public speaker, it's challenging to be out and to be displaying your journey. I have boundaries, but it's challenging to be provocative. It's challenging to lead the way. And in some way, we're all leading the way in our own spheres. And so I love the idea that you in your work, and a mother who's in upstate New York, and a woman who's getting into studying journalism in, LA. Like, I love that we're all walking one another home. We need one another. And each one of us can be models of inspiration and possibility for one another. We absolutely need that. And so it's not just me. I'm emboldened by everyone else, and we all just keep walking one another home. And I just love that imagery. It gives me chills.
You know, the church says this body is a sin. Science says this body is a machine. Business says this body is a product, but this body says I'm a freaking fiesta. So to all the too much women in the audience, I want you to stand up. Stand up and be seen in your glory. We are not a piece of human. We are not flesh and ass and temptation. We are feminine energy with masculine force. We are sexy brilliance, and we are hot determination. We are bigger than our breasts and more powerful than our thighs. And our curve is mightier than any sword, and our wit stronger than any insult. We are not here to radiate, to taunt you, to provoke you, to threaten you. We shine not for your adoration. We shine because, baby, you just can't dim the sun.
Do you have haters on social media? And if you do, what do you do about them? Do you do nothing about them?
Yeah, I love that question. Surprisingly, I don't have as many haters as you would think. I mean, considering the reach, I really don't have as many as you would think. I know people have a lot of haters because now I have a lot of people in the community that I speak with.
Mm-hmm.
The fascinating thing for me, which was both fascinating and heartbreaking, was that my viral success, it wasn't the anonymous hater. It was the people in my closer circle who disappeared and who became very silent and who have tiptoed out of my life. And that was very, very difficult for me. I'm still unpacking why people are uncomfortable when someone speaks their truth, even when it doesn't directly impact them. Perhaps we can assume that some of it is because they're not ready to face their own, or it challenges them to think about themselves, or maybe it just changes the dynamic of your relationship. But the hate, when you say, the haters, the hardest part of my public space hasn't been the strangers, because, you have a lot of people who say ugly things, but that doesn't affect me the same way someone who says nothing to me, who's been a friend of mine for 15 years, the absence of their voice is more hurtful than a stranger calling me a fat cow or a feminist, a freaking feminist. So does that make sense?
100%, because I know exactly what you're saying. I totally get it.
One of my favorite sayings is that I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. And so what's become very clear for me on this journey is that there are some very precious people in my circle. We all need them. And while I have an incredible social media community, I really have some phenomenal people in my tribe. We all need a handful of people to hold us. And that handful could be one, but we need someone to hold us in our highest possibility, someone who won't flinch when we do shine, as I say in my speech, someone who doesn't get uncomfortable when we're standing fully in our power. We all need and deserve that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I have maybe 4 friends that I know I can do anything with and say anything and be anything, and they're still going to be my biggest champions, whether I fall flat on my face or I'm a huge success.
That circles back to trust, right? So you trust that your relationship will sustain itself no matter what. And the same is the goal for myself, my relationship with myself.
Right.
It's like the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've got me. My goal in relationships with other people that I'm close to. And that's my goal in relationship with myself, to accept all the parts.
I was just speaking with a lady the other day, and she was saying how she doesn't unconditionally love herself.
Something came to me the other day, about a month ago, and I've been really sitting with it. So let me see if I can articulate it. A lot of people say love yourself, and it's kind of lost its meaning. Like, I don't even know I know I'm supposed to do it. I don't know how. What is that? How? Give me, so I've really been unpacking that because people are always asking.
Yeah.
So here's what I've come to. Let me just break it down. 4 things. Number 1 is you got to know yourself. Where I start with most women is we don't even know ourselves. We come to a point in our lives where we've been living so unconsciously for other people, for approval, for our kids, for our spouses, for our community, blah, blah, blah. We don't even know ourselves. And even if we did know ourselves, we are ever evolving. And so I maybe knew myself 3 years ago. I maybe knew myself a year ago. I'm not the same woman. I'm not even the same woman as last week. Coming to know ourselves and staying curious. That's number 1. To love yourself, you got to know yourself. And then number 2, as you get to know yourself, you're learning the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? The things that, hey, I really like this about me. I'm not so crazy about this. These are my wounds. These are the things that, my codependency, and knowing yourself and then accepting this is me. I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to dodge it. I'm not going to bulldozer it. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to be like, la, 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 la. I'm going to look at it and I'm going to accept that this is me. And then the third step to loving yourself is focusing on the things that you like. So like I said before, focusing on the strength rather than focusing on the deficit. So know yourself, accept this is who you are, and then focus on the things that you like. Put more attention there. Because as you said, taking pictures of women, we focus so much on the deficit. That's all we focus on. So putting intentional effort into focusing on what you like would be step number 3. And then step number 4 is the verb part. Like love is an action. So I'm going to take loving action in the direction of those things. So that's what I've unpacked for myself. And I've been working through those stages. Know yourself, accept yourself, focus on the parts that you like, more attention there, and then act lovingly.
I really love that. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's so good. I've had to come to terms that sometimes, I don't know why that was so hard for me to acknowledge that I was sometimes immature, but I am.
Yeah.
Feeling all like not the 53-year-old woman that I would hope to be.
Right. And then we put so much focus and energy on that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the time and energy that we spend there that is really the crux of it. I mean, I tend to be a procrastinator, and I spent so much time shaming myself about that instead of focusing on, hey, you know what? I'm really good being spontaneous. You wake me up in the middle of the night for an interview, like I'm on. So I want to focus on the thing, on my genius, right? Like just put energy and attention there. Just take the spotlight, even if it's for an hour a day or half an hour a day, and just focus the attention there.
Yeah.
Because unconsciously, we're always going to be focusing on the lack. That's how our brain works. That's how we're socialized. So putting intention on the thing that you like about yourself. It's not ignoring the pieces of you that are immature or that's, likes to procrastinate, but it's the putting attention on the things that you like, on your strengths. And that builds your self-trust. Like our relationships are mirrors of our relationships with other people. So if we look at a partner and we're like, I love that he's so kind and funny and has such dreams for himself, or he's kind to animals or whatever the thing is, but I really can't stand the fact that, I don't know, he's messy. And if I just focus on the part that I don't like and I obsess over that, I'm missing all the pieces that I do like. So we can see in the context of other relationships that we can never apply it to ourselves.
Yeah, that made it really clear.
What you focus on expands. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And something I've heard before in another aha. So just keep needing them. That's why I keep having these conversations, though. So thank you.
It's kind of like the stars. And my son's really into astronomy. So it's kind of like the stars. It's like connecting dots every day. But the more you look, like there's more stars. Like if you zoom in more, it's like it's never ending. So it's not so much like, oh, shit, there's more stars. Now I've got to connect more. It's more like, oh my gosh, look at that galaxy over there. So it's the energy that I bring to that.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, oh my gosh, there's even more to unpack here. I kind of look at it like my son does when he looks at the night sky. It's like, wow, there's more. Wow, there's more, with curiosity. And if we can just approach ourselves with that same level of curiosity, just shift it, tweaks it a little bit.
I have tears in my eyes. Thank you so much for such a beautiful conversation.
I enjoyed it. You were wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.